shortcut on this computer. Yeah. Hi, Fred.
Hi,
Good
Amélie.
to have you here, and I'm really delighted and honored that we're having this dialogue, the two of us today, talking about innovation. Wondering if innovation is a threat in this COVID-19 context. Because it's true that this COVID-19 has blasted all our ways of life and ways of working. And it's like an Indian friend of mine was saying, you know, Amélie, it's like a reset button. And that's really the feeling of this reset. So a part of the thrill also, no? When there's a reset, it's the opportunity to start again. And you can see on the social media, there are many initiatives from institutions, from corporate sectors, also the non-profit sectors, inviting citizens, employees, and people to reinvent, to share suggestions. How do we want to create the new world? So that's the exciting part. And at the same time, there's lots of pain, there's loss, there's lots of despair. I can hear, I can feel, I can experience also, of course, in this crisis all around us. And the question is, it's clear that business as usual is finished. And when I say business, I mean the corporate sector, but I'm speaking also about non-profit sector. I'm speaking about all our activity. Business as usual is not anymore. So how should we do business now? And Fred, so myself, I'm an expert in crisis management, in resilience. I've been working and living in South America, in the Caribbean, in Asia, in Africa, managing disasters, working in war zones, and here in this COVID crisis, diving with entrepreneurs, institutions, and people into what is resilience, how do we strengthen it, and how do we manage this crisis and prepare for what's after the confinement period. And Fred, we know each other. Fred Mouawad, you are one of the most inspiring entrepreneurs for me. I've always admired, and you know it from the beginning, how this ability you have to just create companies and concepts and innovate as it was just like so easy. You're really a serial entrepreneur. You're a diamantaire, but really an elite one. I mean, Miss Universe was blessed to wear on her crown one of your diamonds. You're the founder of Synergia Group one, and I'm wondering, Fred, how many companies have you created?
I think if you take a look at the companies, it's probably 7, but within each company, I've innovated several concepts. For example, in my food service company, we started with one brand, pizza, coffee, then we branched out into Thai food, ice cream, sandwiches. So we've innovated a lot within companies that we've created. The same thing with my publishing company. We have 3 magazines. We started in the jewelry sector. We're now in the eye care sector. We're in the pet industry. So I love innovation, and we innovate within each company that we've created.
Yeah, wow, that's really it gives me goosebumps because it's really inspiring how this ability and would you say that, I mean, isn't the being an entrepreneur synonymous to being an innovator? I mean, you mentioned it. You can only innovate when you create a company, no?
Yes, I think so. In most cases, being an entrepreneur means identifying and filling a new space in the market with a product or service that customers are willing to pay for. But entrepreneurs innovate at different degrees. Some come up with radical new ideas. Let's think about Airbnb, how they use the shared economy model to enable unit owners to rent out their units. But you can also use an existing business model and implement it in a new marketplace. So for example, you could start a coffee chain in an emerging market. And by doing that, you take a proven business model that worked elsewhere and you transfer that business model over to new markets. So you can create new ideas, but ultimately it's about starting something that adds value in the marketplace and that allows you to create value and grow sustainably. So that's the key. So you can be a radical innovator, or you can simply copy business models in new markets.
Okay, that's very interesting. So would you say that innovation, if you had to define innovation, would you say that it's very linked to this added value?
Innovation for me is any new initiative that is of benefit to the next customer in the value chain. It can be at the beginning. It can be at the beginning of the creation of a product or service, or how it's delivered at the end of the value chain. So the improvement can be small and incremental or radical. As an example, in the diamond industry, we've seen a lot of innovations at the beginning of the value chain. By using 3D imaging and modeling, we're able to plan for the cutting of a diamond to maximize its yield. But we've also seen innovations at the end of the value chain in terms of how the product is delivered to customers by selling diamonds online and enabling customers to design their own jewelry. So although selling diamonds online started in the late 90s, with technology, the process has become easier and companies have made incremental innovation improvements to the process. So it's really, innovation is about making improvements, coming up with new ideas that add value, and it can be at any point in the entire value chain, at the beginning or at the end.
Interesting. And then how do you see this innovation in a reset context? In this COVID-19, of course, innovation cannot happen the way it happened. Can innovation still happen, or what is the status of innovation in this crisis?
You know, I've been confined for the last 45 days at home, and I realized that you cannot innovate from home. You know, that's very clear.
Yeah.
To innovate, you have to immerse yourself where the problem is. You have to be able to see how all the pieces interact together. You have to see the people, the problem, the process, the materials, the machines. So you have to be on the ground to be able to see where the pain points are. And I think that's fundamental for innovation. And I suspect that a lot of companies are innovating far less working at home than being able to actually be in the marketplace, seeing what opportunities there are, and testing on the ground. So I think that's fundamentally what we need to do, and we can't really do virtually.
And at the same time, Fred, if we are not able to innovate now, because can I say that reinventing a business, reinventing a vision, reinventing the way we do things, because the vision we keep the same. I mean, it's the how has changed radically because the context is totally different. In a very short time and in an unexpected manner. Nobody was expecting such a crisis, such a global crisis, and that is affecting every areas of our lives and our businesses. So at the same time, there's no survival possible if we don't reinvent ourselves, if we don't innovate. So do you see that still? I mean, we always say crisis. There's, of course, I mean, I'm the first to believe crisis, it can and must be converted into an opportunity. So where are the opportunities that we have, that you see in your experience and in your vision? What are the opportunities in this crisis in terms of innovation?
You know, what I realized working from home is that it's very effective to exchange information, but more importantly, you can actually have a conversation with a lot of people that are dispersed geographically. You can talk to people all over the world. And so I think there's an opportunity here to innovate the process of innovation by allowing companies to share the key data of the problem on the ground. So instead of yourself being on the ground to see it, you could send a team, and that team could collect all the facts. They could make images, describe the problem, and provide the context and enough information to enable experts from around the world to connect and collaborate to solve that problem. So I think that could be something that a lot of companies are still not doing effectively. We tend to rely on our internal teams to solve our own problems, but we don't have a process. We don't have a process that enables us to define the problem and then tap on demand with a very global network of experts and pay them just for that one job. So it's very effective. You can pull external experts in to solve your problem virtually by collaborating, and you pay them just specifically for that job. So not enough companies are actually innovating that way. And I think with technology today, we're able to do it. It's just a different way of thinking.
Yeah, so a blessing that we have technology to thrive through these circumstances, and I'm hearing, yes, opening to the world, collaborating, and being curious of what is possible, and changing our maybe way changing the way we think that things are possible, in opening to what we thought was impossible before, no? And I hear also when you say we have to send our teams, we must see the teams, we must look for experts, this we I understand the leader. No, innovation, there's a leader behind. We cannot do right. You right. need someone to sort of pull and push, no? To someone who inspires, someone who is going to take people, because I mean innovation is also change. I mean, we don't like change, no? We're so lazy to watch change, getting out of the comfort zone. So we need this leader now who is going to be able to inspire us. And actually what is beautiful also of the crisis, it's, I mean, crisis comes as a big pain and as a big surprise and everything, but it obliges us to get into the change. And then we can see that, yes, we change. We are totally adaptable to change. And so we do it. So this leader in this context, what would you say the leader in general? Let's say in general, what is the leader who's going to push and inspire innovation? What are his or her characteristics?
I think the first thing an innovative leader does is that they're customer centric. They care about their customers. They understand the pain point customers go through. So whether they've experienced it themselves or they listen to it in the marketplace and directly from customers. So they need to have that empathy. They need to be very good listeners. They need to take feedback and keep their ears and eyes on the ground in order to really identify opportunities. So very important to be very close to customers. The other thing they do is they create a culture of innovation. And that means that you assemble the right people, put the right processes in place, and then you focus on the right projects. You want to make sure that you focus on projects that actually add value. And they also create clarity about when to continue funding a project and when to stop. And most importantly, they encourage their team to test new ideas, knowing that failure is part of the innovation process, as long as that process is controlled. So it's really important to enable the team to try new initiatives as long as you control the downside and you have a way to decide whether to continue or to stop. They also have a lot of operating experience. They understand the elements required to scale an idea economically. They have a keen sense of all the activities required to actually deliver on the idea. Lastly, they are great motivators. They are realistic and yet optimistic about what is possible to create a better future. They rely on their teams, paint a clear vision, and create the right environment for talent to thrive and deliver excellent results. And obviously, it's not easy combining all these elements into one leader, but I do believe that these are the traits that are required for people to succeed at the top and then cascade that culture down throughout the organization.
Yeah, that's definitely the traits we want to develop as leaders, because we all now, also with the crisis, we can see how, and you were mentioning now how the innovation spectrum is evolving, and so we all have a scope also to take some leadership and step where we had not stepped before.
Amélie, I'd like to ask you a question as well. I know that you are a consultant to many organizations and you're an expert in leadership and crisis management. And you've been working recently with a lot of leaders in Europe who are confined. So how do they experience and envision their innovation leadership in time of crisis? And what advice are you giving all these leaders?
Yeah, thank you for your questions, because that's really, you know, for Europe, it's a huge shock. And I've lived, I'm back in Europe after 25 years, but 23 years in countries that experience crisis on a regular basis. I've been in touch with entrepreneurs or governments or communities for whom crisis, I mean, of course, is always a challenge, and we're working at strengthening resilience in managing it and learning, but it's part of a way of life, a way of doing business. And here it's since the Second World War, we never experienced a crisis that affects everyone and in all areas. So here what I hear from the leaders I'm working with and the teams is innovation is a must, because there's no survival. But there's this pain of, because discomfort, no, that there's been during so many years where we were innovating, but from a place we were innovating. Even in innovation, there's some comfort, no, because we were doing this way, it was working. We had everything in place. And at the same time, they have this urge for reinventing themselves, for innovating. I was this week working with a big tourism group. Look, tourism needs totally to be reinventing. So you can keep this big vision of what you want and how you see the world and what is the experience you want to give to people and to your clients. But how you're going to do it is radically changed. And one of the senior directors of this group was telling me, you see, the challenge she was having right now, she said, now it's like a little after an earthquake. You have all this cleansing work to do. Now you have to remove the rubble and to clean everything. So we're doing that. We're dealing with the providers. We're dealing with the clients who've given a prepayment to events that cannot happen, that won't happen before maybe a few years. We are dealing with all this, and then the employees, all the legal aspects, the financial aspects. I mean, all this managing the disaster. And she said, I'm lacking this time for strategizing, for like you said, no, the ideas. Now you were mentioning these ideas and everything. You need sort of this little of a bubble to think, to envision, to dare creating. And today, she said, I'm missing that. And what we were discussing, I said, you know, when managing natural disaster or managing massive displacement in a war zones, for example, you actually, from the stage of the disaster and the management of the immediate needs of people and the crisis itself, you're already thinking on how you want to recover. Because then the way you're responding to the crisis is going to have an imprint on the way you are able to recover. So from this space of the crisis management, what I like to tell them is there are three main things for me. The first thing is, so the first thing is that very important. Okay, I'm here. Yes, I'm in the middle of the crisis. There's literally not time for more, but there's always. So is keep your vision. Keep your vision of what is your company, what is the why of this company, what is the experience you want to give to people. Because, and this is a very second important point, what has happened is a massive change, yes, but a massive change of context. Let's put crisis in its place. It's a circumstance. Yes, it's massive, it's like a tsunami, it changed everything, but it's only a circumstance. We are more than COVID-19. Our businesses are more, our lives are more, our visions are more. This is us, so we need to retake this control. And you know that I learned from working in Afghanistan, working in Colombia 20 years back when the conflict was very high. The people there, they're not talking about war all day and having this anxiety, there is war, I cannot do anything. Of course, war is the context. So they're going to adjust to the context. They're going to work in this context. They're going to speak about peace. They're going to speak about politics, maybe. They're going to take security measures. They're going a number of things. But they taking the decision. They're at the driving seat. They making their lives. They moving their businesses ahead, taking into account the context, but as a context. So COVID-19 is not deciding on what we want to create and who we are. COVID-19 is an overwhelming context, crisis, yes. But let's remind who is the boss. And the boss is us. The boss is you, the leader, the team, the company, and each of us in the life. And the third thing I like to remind leaders and their teams is something we have forgotten in Europe. Europe, I'm speaking about Europe because I'm here and I've seen in Asia it's very different. But in Europe, because of this abundance of external resources and the role of the states in the society, then people have relied a lot on external resources. Now there was abundance, there's a lot of external resources, they are here. So of course you enjoy them, you work with them, everything moves with all this functioning. Okay, with the limitations, of course, but there's already this external abundance of external resources. So what happens when suddenly you cut off these external resources? People have this feeling, what I'm seeing people who after, for example, when we do the coaching or after the webinar say, oh, Amélie, I didn't think I was that strong. We've lost the faith in us. We lost the trust in us. Why? And whether it's an individual or as a company, because we forgot that the first and foremost resource is us. I am my first resource. You know what I say in my book, that you endorse, that you speak and live your legacy. We have all within, and that I learned from people who've lost everything in the aftermath of natural disasters. We all hold within this inner diamond. And this inner diamond is this resilience, all our talents, all these resources, all this creativity, this ability to innovate, to step in what we didn't think we had to step in. Not the things that in our lives, because we had our crisis in our lives, the things that make us bounce higher. So this same thing is here, and it's our inner resources, our talents, our capabilities, our experiences. And if we're talking about a team or company, the internal resources. Let's look a little at us here. Here we are. And this resilience is a muscle. So what's happening to us in some parts of the world is that we didn't have to activate it because life was a little easier than other parts. So it's like you go to the gym, no? After so many months, and it's painful everywhere. And sometimes you say, oh, I didn't know there was a muscle in that part of the body. It's the same. So here, for example, what I see is that we receive a big packet and our biceps are not ready. It's okay. Let's activate them. So let's reconnect with the inner and internal resources. Yeah. So that's what I really believe is resilient leadership, and how we can really reconnect with this resilience and inspire our teams and inject this resilience spirit and muscle in our companies. And you know, one other thing that I heard a lot, and in here, Fred, I read a lot, and that's a part I actually ask you more than once. I would like to read you on that. Is I know something you're very involved and is close to your heart is servant leadership. And you know what, the same leaders, I heard from many leaders in those days who told me, you know, Amélie, before COVID, I was really focused on efficiency, getting things done, and and all was going good. And now with this, when I hear the suffering of my team, when I feel it, when I'm not able to give them this certainty I would love to give them, and I feel that I want to develop more my listening skill. I want that my team feels that I feel for them, but I don't know how to express that. I don't know how to tell them that I feel concerned for them, that I'm here to serve them. You know, as I want to serve the company, I'm here to serve them in, and that this crisis brings another dimension in. And when I hear that, I think a lot about what I've read also from you about servant leadership. So what would you say, what is the special role of servant leadership in this context?
Well, the servant leader first puts the needs of other people first. So it's no longer about me. It's no longer about me. It's about them. And I think that's probably what you're seeing with a lot of leaders. Before all the information came to them, they may have used the command and control mechanism where they were the most important person in the organization. The servant leadership actually looks at it the opposite way. They are there to serve other people. It's about other people. So what they want to do is they want to empower people, enable them to become the best version of themselves. And only when you empower people and you create the right environment can you get the best out of your teams. And in a crisis, that's exactly what you need to do. You need to care, you need to support, you need to empower your teams, you need to trust them. And that's what a servant leader does. He's there to make sure everybody has the right resources, the right moral support to be able to give their best possible results. So it's a shift, I think, in the way most people think about leadership, but it's a very effective model if people start thinking that it's not about them, it's about other people, and they should put their needs first, and they should figure a way to enable other people to grow so they can grow in their jobs and add value to their organization.
Thank you so much, Fred. I'm so happy to have had this dialogue with you, and I hope it's going to be as useful to those who listen to us. And let's keep it up. Let's dialogue regularly on some topics that that we see can be useful, and we'd love to hear and read your comments, your reactions, your perspectives. No? What would you say in a conclusion?
I much appreciate it.
What would you say as a conclusion, Fred?
I think for me, there are two key takeaways. One is how can we use technology to rethink the process of innovation? And I think we can do this. We can do this by enabling more people to solve the problem once we define it. So I think that's one key takeaway. And the second one is about how to lead in times of crisis. What I heard from you is tapping into your core values, into who you are. You still have a lot of creative capabilities. You need to focus on what you can control. Yes, the context is changing. COVID-19 has disrupted the world, but we have not changed. Yeah. Our core values have not changed. So if we keep on focusing, on what we can control, then we're going to be able to navigate this crisis, because there are certain things we can't control, but we'll be well positioned to capture opportunities along the way, as long as we stay positive and we energize our team and keep on moving forward.
Yeah, I love this word you've used, Fred, navigate. I mean, we have our boat. Our boat is here. And they only see that the sea has become has changed. The context has changed. I mean, we know how to adapt to context. I mean, in a company, change is always happening. Yes, it's a little more massive. It's unusual, but we'll make it. So let us adapt to the context and let's put it in its place as a circumstance, and let's reconnect with our strength. Thank you so much, Fred.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me still?
Yes, very well.
Great.
Alors,